Okay.
Can she come back in?
Where are we? Okay. I can't hear a thing. I don't know what's going on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I
Can you
can.
hear me now?
Yes, Judge. Good morning.
Okay, I'm waiting on an order. We'll start in just a moment.
Okay.
Morning. Hey, Judge. Good morning. How's everyone?
Good, Judge.
Good.
I got a screen full this morning.
You do.
Why aren't we on there?
Move the camera up a little so we can see you. Okay.
Okay, I'm waiting on Christy to get back to the clerk's office so we can swear everybody in, and then we'll get going.
Who is the judge?
Judge Sylvia.
What?
Judge Sylvia in the
Which
middle.
one?
Ah,
Is his face there?
Georgia, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And
The judge
She
is in
knows.
the-
Louis, I mean,
It's okay. It's okay.
Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving.
In the middle.
We did, Judge. Thank you.
Video. No, the man in the middle. Rename. She was civil.
I don't see no man. I see a man in the corner.
In the middle. In the middle. With the blue on.
Oh, wait. No, he's on the second.
she knows
Second or
Louis.
third person.
This is this person who wants
I see
to.
Christy's back.
Yes, sir.
She
Robin's
knows.
Yeah.
bringing us the paper.
That's fine. All right, anyone that's going to testify, if you'll raise your right hand, we'll swear you.
Raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. There you go.
Good morning. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're giving today is true and correct, so help you God?
I do.
I do. Okay, you can put your hand down and we'll get started. First on the docket is cause number 115, the state of Daniel Joseph Callabay.
It's
Maybe because it's-
Mr.
good
Bill,
morning. Hey, good morning, Judge.
And Judge, I'm here with Miss Callabay, who is a claimant and a resident, lives in the house and has for years with her son. So we're here.
okay, and Lila,
I'm present, Your Honor.
all right. Mr. Bill, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. All right, Ms. Callabay, can you state your name for the record, please?
Teresa Renee Callabay.
Okay, and who was Daniel Joseph Callabay?
He was my husband,
And how long had y'all been married?
30 years.
Okay, and now he had a fixed place of residence here in Chambers County?
Correct.
And where exactly? Do you know?
104 Donna Street
Here in Anahuac?
in Anahuac.
Okay, come down. Okay, and what day did Mr. Callabay pass away?
He passed away March the 4th of 2021.
Okay, and come down. And as for to best of your knowledge, he did not have a will, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and 4 years have not elapsed since the time of his passing, correct?
That's
And,
correct.
we already said what date it was, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you were his wife for 30 years, like you said, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then the only other heir that you know of would be his mother, correct?
Correct.
And what's her name?
Eva Callabay.
Okay, and as you understand intestate law, all community property goes to you 100%, correct?
Correct.
Any separate property that he might have had would be 50% you, 50% his mother, correct?
Correct.
But y'all been married for 30 years, right?
Correct.
And so everything basically he's bought is community property, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there's a necessity for this administration, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. No children were born or adopted by
Correct.
your husband, right?
Correct.
Come down. And were you the only person he was married to?
Yes.
Okay. And y'all own the property at 104 Donna Street here in Anahuac, correct?
Correct.
Come down. Now, you're not disqualified from being appointed administrator. You're not a felon or anything like that.
No,
Okay. You don't see a need for an appraiser, is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay. And so you're asking the judge to appoint you as independent administrator of the estate of Mr. Callabay, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Judge, I'll pass Ms. Callabay to Georgia if she wants to ask any questions.
Georgia, go ahead.
There, you separated from Mr. Callabay
20 years.
for how many years? From now to when you separated, has it been since you were at 104 Donna
20
Drive?
years.
Probably about 15 years.
Just answer.
Oh, 15, around 15 years.
Isn't it true that you left 5 months after the closing on the house at 104 Donna Drive, which is more than 20 years ago?
No, that is an incorrect statement.
So when did you leave? How many months after the closing did you leave the residence?
See where that's necessary, but we were in the house probably 10 years before I left.
How many?
That's okay. She said 10 years. In the 15 or plus years that you have been gone, do you have any knowledge as to who bought what? Because we have filed a claim of $66,000 against this house. You understand that?
I do understand that.
And did you understand that Miss Callabay used her separate monies for the purchase of the things that have been listed here, and it's straight out of her bank account? You do understand that?
I understand what's on the paper.
Okay, so we have presented a tentative purchase of the house this morning, which we would like to further discussions with your attorney and yourself. And are you willing to do that?
For the house to be purchased at the value that it is.
Okay. You understand that Miss Callabay has had 2 strokes, one November the 3rd. She stayed in the hospital for 10 days, and again on November the 16th, and was just released November the 19th. You understand she's 91 years of age,
Yes, I do.
and that she has lived with her son for over. She was actually living there when you left, if I have that correct.
Every six months, yes.
6 months out, but she has been living with him totally 12
Like
months out
5
of the
years.
year. All right, so
Less.
you can understand why she's close to having another stroke with the idea of being removed from her home of so long.
I understand what's going on, yes, but the house is not hers. The value of the things that she has purchased inside the house is hers, but the house is not hers.
All right, but we're willing to negotiate that and try to find a place for her if we're not able to buy the house. We just want the court to understand the situation that Mrs. Callabay is in, having a son who suddenly died of COVID. She had COVID and came out of the hospital unable to move, unable to walk, unable to care for herself. The cost of caregivers she didn't have when her son was alive. So her whole life has kind of turned south, and she really
Understand
needs.
that, and I'm sorry to hear about your son.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, so have we done a declaration determining heirship?
No, Judge, they haven't gone into that yet.
Are you gonna prove that? I didn't know if we proved that previously. So, Ms. Savage, do you have any questions for this witness?
Yes, I was gonna ask her, Ms. Callabay,
Yes,
do you have 2 witnesses to testify or affidavits to present in regard to the heirship proceedings?
yes, yes.
Okay, and, well, I guess I'd ask Mr. Bill, are you gonna proceed with that?
I am. As soon as we're finished with this line of questioning, I'll go with the 2 witnesses. They're on camera right now.
Okay, yeah,
that's-
let's proceed with that, determining the heirship.
Okay, Judge, we'll do it.
I can,
Okay, at this point, Judge, I'm gonna call Miss Betty Ann Johnson Mooney. And she's muted right now, so she needs to unmute her.
Betty, you're muted. So if you'll,
She must be having trouble with her speaker.
Ah, there you go. You got it.
Okay, can you hear me?
yes, ma'am, we can hear you now.
Okay,
You may
good.
proceed, Mr. Bill.
Alrighty. All right, Miss Mooney, you raised your hand and was sworn in when the judge swore everybody in.
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. Can you tell me your name, please?
Betty Ann Mooney. My
Okay.
maiden name is Johnson.
Okay. And where do you live?
I live in Mangum, 151 Railroad Avenue in Mangum, Louisiana.
In Louisiana. Okay. And you've got personal knowledge of the marital history of Daniel Joseph Callabay. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. This is my
Okay.
daughter, Teresa.
Teresa's your daughter. Okay.
Yes,
So you knew Mr. Callabay from approximately February of 91 until he passed away. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And you know that he passed away in Baytown, Harris County. Is that correct?
Yes,
And he lived at 104 Donna Street here in Anahuac, Chambers County.
yes.
Okay.
Knew that.
And to the best of your knowledge, you know that his only marital history was to your daughter.
That's correct.
And you know that this was never terminated, never dissolved, correct?
No, she was still married to him.
Okay. They never had any children though, correct?
No, not together.
They didn't adopt any either, right?
No,
Now, you do know Miss Eva Callabay, correct?
yes, I do.
Okay, and you know that was Mr. Callabay's mother.
Mother, right.
And now his father is deceased.
I didn't hear you.
His Mr. Callabay's father is deceased.
Oh, yes,
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, Mr. Callabay, that Daniel, he died without a will.
correct. That's what I understood.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, there's not been any administration up to this point, correct?
Correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, you don't know of any unpaid debts.
Not that I know of.
Okay, no unpaid estate or inheritance taxes, correct?
Correct.
And you do know that him and your daughter own the house at 104 Donna Street, Anahuac, Texas, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you have signed an affidavit to that effect, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I have e-filed it. Okay, thank you, Ms. Mooney. I'll pass her to anybody who wants to ask her questions.
Ms. Savage,
Okay, Ms. Mooney, do you have any interest in this estate? Any monetary
don't.
interest?
No, I don't.
Okay, and in regard to Mr. Callabay, were you aware of any children that he might have had by any other women?
No,
Okay, and during the marriage, you never heard him speak of having to pay child support or
no.
him fathering another child? Do you
That's
think
correct.
you would have known that had that been the case?
I would have known because he would probably said something if he had, you know.
Okay, and he never mentioned the Attorney General filing anything against him to try to
No.
collect child support? Okay,
No, sure didn't.
and as far as marriages, you're sure that he never was married before?
I think Teresa was his only wife, so
That's his only wife, okay. And as far as the will, but to your knowledge, there was no will?
no, as far as I know.
I pass the witness.
okay. Ms. Clapper? Do you have any?
One question, Judge. Are you familiar with the mortgage that's on 104 Donna Drive?
Am I familiar with what?
The mortgage that is currently owed on 104 Donna Drive to something called SharePoint Mortgaging Service.
No, I don't know
All right.
anything about that.
So, so possibly your Miss Callabay herself will be finding that out, Teresa, about the mortgage that she is also named on. I have no other question, Your Honor.
Okay, call your next witness.
Thank you, Judge. Miss
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Jessica Brocker, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were sworn in when the judge had you raise your hand and be sworn in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Can you tell me your name, please?
Jessica Renee Brocker.
Okay. And where do you live, ma'am?
I live in Canton, Texas.
Okay. And you're familiar with the marital history of Mr. Daniel Joseph Callabay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you knew Mr. Callabay approximately from January of 1988 till he passed away?
Correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, he died on March 4th, 2021
Correct.
in Baytown, Harris County.
Yes, sir.
And he lived at 104 Donna Street, Anahuac, Chambers County, Texas, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, you know that his only marital history was to Miss Teresa Callabay?
Yes, sir.
To the best of your knowledge, did you know if he had any children with Miss Callabay
No, sir.
or any other children?
No, sir.
Was there any adopted to the best of your knowledge by him?
No, sir.
And do you know Mr. Callabay's mother, Miss Eva Callabay? You know that she is his mother?
Correct. Yes, ma'am. Sir.
Okay. All right. Come down. You know his father was deceased as well, correct?
Correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, he died without leaving a will.
Correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, there has not been any administration on this estate up till now, correct?
Correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, you don't know of any debts that are unpaid in this estate, correct?
Correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, no unpaid estate or inheritance taxes.
Correct.
Okay. And you know that him and Ms. Callabay here owned the real property at 104 Donna Street, Anahuac, Texas, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you signed an affidavit to the fact. Is that?
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Okay. And I've e-filed that. Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Savage.
Hey, Ms. Brocker, in regard to this estate, do you have any monetary interest in it whatsoever?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And in regard to children of Mr. Callabay, do you have any knowledge of him having any child or children with any other women besides his spouse here today?
No.
Okay. And he didn't have any children with her?
No.
Okay. And you knew these people fairly well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you
He was my
visit with him?
stepdad.
Ma'am?
He was my stepdad.
Oh, okay. So you knew him pretty well. In regard to,
Adult out there.
Sir? I didn't hear that.
I don't know where that
Hello?
came from, Willa.
What, sir?
I don't know where that came from. I think maybe it was,
Oh,
she's
just
muted.
somebody popped in. Okay.
So go ahead.
So in that regard, you feel certain that he had no other children and that the only heirs would be his surviving spouse and his mother, Mrs. Callabay?
That is correct.
Okay. I pass the witness.
Okay. Ms. Clapper, any questions of this witness?
No, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Mr. Bill, I see the order is determining heirship and granting letters of independent administration. Ms. Savage, are you good with the two heirs on the judgment declaring heirship? Ms.
That's the one I sent. I never did. I had requested a correction on it. I don't know. It didn't have in there in regard to, it had in it the community, everything went to the spouse, which I understand that. But on the separate property of Mr. Callabay, I'd like for it to state that all the personal would go to the wife, all his personal separate property, but the real property would be, any separate real property would be 50-50 between the mom and the decedent.
Okay, and I have a first amendment judgment that came in just before we started.
I did file that, Judge. Yes.
Okay, and
Okay, so you did correct that, Mr. Bill?
I did.
I mean, added that or whatever.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm okay with that then.
So it's Teresa Callabay, real property, 100%. Interest and share in community real property, 100%. Interest and share in community personal property, 100%. Interest and share in separate real property, 50. Interest share in separate personal property, 50. And then Eva Callabay, interest and share in separate real property, 50. And interest and share in separate personal property, 50. So that looks correct.
Your Honor, could I add that all of the separate property of Eva Callabay that is in that residence be Eva Callabay's? Because she has a lot, everything that she brought from Hungary is in that house, antiques, crystal. That's why I filed this extensive claim. And I need that to be awarded to Mrs. Eva.
Well,
Callabay.
I don't have an order at this time to award that. What I want to do is set this aside and let you and Mr. Bill work out before I actually sign off on the judgment and the letter of independent administration. Mr. Bill, can y'all do that?
We can do that. I guess if we can, if she wants to add individual, each itemized, we can add that, but I think it goes without saying, any separate property that's hers is hers. There's no question about that.
Yeah, there is, and you're absolutely right. But I still think there's some issues. Sounds to me like there's some issues here. And if you want to visit and then come back and visit with me, then I'll sign off on the airship and the independent administration.
I would like to do that, Judge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 135, the estate of Jessie Lynn Langford. Ms. Rickman.
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
Okay,
Ma'am.
I'd like to call first Brandy Langford. Brandy, can you unmute? Unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, we can. You may proceed.
I guess they're through with this part.
Thank you, Judge. All right.
Thank you.
Brandy, were you sworn in this morning when the judge swore in the others in the room?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you please state your name for the court?
Brandy Deanne Langford.
And your husband, Jessie Lynn Langford, passed away on September the 20th, 2021 in Chambers County, Texas?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
correct? Okay. And his residence was also in Chambers County prior to his death, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And where was that? Where was that? Where was he domiciled?
At home.
And that
Seven-
address?
7614 Pampero Lane, Baytown, Texas.
Okay, and that's in Chambers County?
Yes, ma'am.
And you are the applicant in the judgment declaring heirship and letters of administration?
Yes, ma'am.
Were any children born or adopted during your marriage to Jessie?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And all parties, as far as you know, have been served or signed waivers in this case. Any heirs?
Yes, ma'am.
Administration is necessary.
Yes.
Okay. And you have two witnesses, disinterested witnesses today. And who are they?
Haley and Jay.
No, your witnesses,
Um,
not the heirs.
Darla, Curtis, and Jim. Joe. I'm sorry. Joe and Darla Curtis.
Yes. Okay. And the heirs to Jessie's estate are,
Haley and Jay
and yourself.
and me. Yes.
Okay. Do you know of any unpaid debts that Jessie may have had prior to his death or now?
No, ma'am. Not that I know of.
And let's see, let's go back a minute. The property that you both lived in, you're still living in the property that you guys owned. Okay, and do you, let's see, is there a mortgage on the property?
Yes, ma'am, there is.
Okay. And what else okay, did the decedent receive any Medicaid after March the 1st, 2005?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And is there any reason why you would be disqualified from serving as an administrator or being granted letters of administration?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Price. Good morning.
Judge, good morning, Judge. Are we doing both at the same time?
If you got any questions for this one, then we'll go into the airship. So, yeah.
No, Judge, I don't have any questions for this witness.
Okay, ma'am, if you'll call your first witness on the airship.
Okay. Well, my first witness would be Darla Curtis.
Good morning.
Uh-oh, I can't see her.
Can you see me?
I
Oh,
can.
there you are. There you are. You can see her, Judge. Okay. All
Can you
right.
see me, Judge?
Man.
Okay.
Okay. So please state your name for the court.
Dorlea Denise Curtis,
Thank you. And where do you live?
Seabrook, Texas.
Okay. And you know the family history?
Yes.
Okay. How long, let's see, and the decedent, to the best of your knowledge, passed away on September the 20th, 2021?
Yes.
And how long did you know the decedent?
I've known Jesse for probably 15, 20 years.
And we are here today to determine heirship for Jesse Lynn Langford's estate. Do you know Brandy Langford to be the wife of Jesse Lynn Langford?
Yes. I
Okay.
attended the wedding.
Okay. They had no children together, correct?
Correct.
However, Jesse had 2 children who are named as heirs in this proceeding.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And that is Haley Monsivas and Jesse J. Langford.
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, the decedent owned property at 7614 Pampero Lane in Baytown.
Yes.
All right. And the decedent did not receive Medicare after March 1st, 2005, to the best of your knowledge.
Yes, that's correct. Did not.
And you have no interest in the estate of Jesse Lynn Langford and have not been compensated for being here today, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Curtis.
You're welcome.
Ask the witness.
All right, Ms. Price.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Curtis, did you and Mr. Langford ever have an opportunity to talk about him having a will, or he needed to get a will? Did y'all ever talk about that?
No.
Did he ever mention that, oh, I need to get a will, or I've got a will and it's hidden here? Did he ever talk about that?
No.
So to your knowledge, he never had a will.
Correct.
And the 2 children that were named here today are the only 2 children that Mr. Langford has.
Correct.
And he never brought in another child and said, hey, this is my other child, or this is my 3rd or 4th child. He never brought any other children into the home and claimed them as his.
Correct. He has not.
Okay. Judge, and you're not being compensated for your testimony today.
That's correct.
Okay. Judge, I pass this witness.
All right, call your next witness, Ms. Rickman.
All right. I call Joe Curtis. Joe, were you sworn in with everyone? The judge swore everyone this morning? Uh-oh, you're muted. Joe, you're muted. Can you turn your...
Unmute.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. All right. So Joe, were you present when the judge swore everyone in this morning?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Would you please state your name for the court?
Joseph Erickson Curtis.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you some of the questions that I already asked Ms. Curtis. And First of all, where do you live?
Seabrook, Texas.
And you are aware of the passing of Jessie Lynn Langford on September the 20th, 2021?
Yes, I am.
And you knew the family history?
Yes.
And how long did you know the decedent?
20 plus years.
Okay. And you knew that Brandy Langford was the wife of Jessie Lynn Langford at the time of his death?
Yes,
And they had no children together that you're aware of?
that is correct.
Okay. And Jessie had 2 children who were named as heirs in this proceeding, Haley Montsevis and Jessie J. Langford. Correct?
Correct.
Were there any other children that you're aware of, or
No, ma'am.
that were adopted or brought into the family? Okay.
No.
And let's see, if some of the other questions are repetitive, so I'm going to say, if I ask you the same questions that I asked Miss Curtis, would you answer them?
I would agree with all of her.
Agree with, okay, good. And you have no interest in the estate of Jessie Lynn Langford and have not been compensated for being here today, correct?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much. I passed the witness.
Ms. Price.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Curtis, you and I've had some conversations on the phone regarding Mr. Langford, and those answers that you told me, a few weeks ago, are those substantially the same?
Yes.
And so you have no interest in this estate, correct?
That is correct.
And to your knowledge, Mr. Langford never brought in another child into the home and claimed that child as his?
Yes, ma'am.
That he never brought in someone, correct?
I agree with that. Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, that the only heirs today are Miss Langford, which is his wife, and the 2 children named. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you're not being compensated for your testimony today, correct?
No, ma'am.
That's all I have, Judge. And I do agree with what Ms. Rickman put down and has submitted as an order, which is I've signed off on.
Then I hereby approve the judgment declaring heirship and grant letters of administration. And I've also signed the order getting you paid, Ms. Price.
Thank you, Judge. May we be excused?
You may be. Thank you all.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Judge. Thank
Have a
you.
good day. All right, cause number 142, the state of Stephen Scott O'Sullivan. Mr. Davidson, good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. How are you?
I'm good. You may proceed when you're
I'm
ready.
going to proceed with the determination of heirship first. All of the witnesses have been sworn. I'm going to call Margaret Lynn Kempley. Please state your name for the court.
Margaret Lynn Kempley.
And what was your relationship to the decedent, Stephen Scott O'Sullivan?
He's my nephew,
So you've known him your entire life?
his entire life.
Yes, his entire life. I'm sorry. That's right. And isn't it true that at the time your nephew passed away, he had a fixed place of residence in Midtown Chambers County, Texas?
That's right.
And that your nephew was only married one time, is that right?
That's right.
And what was his spouse's name?
Beth O'Sullivan.
Okay, and I think she now goes by Elizabeth Nan Gilmore.
Yes.
Is that right? And to the best of your knowledge, that marriage was terminated by divorce in 2013. Is that right?
That's right.
And there was one child and only one child born of that marriage. Is that right?
Yes.
And who was that?
Stephen. Patrick, I'm sorry.
Patrick, their son Patrick. Were there any other marriages that your nephew had that you were aware of?
None.
And no other children adopted by him, were there?
None.
And he didn't take any children into his home and hold them out as being his children, did he?
No, he did not.
Okay. No other marriages.
Right.
Did you ever hear your nephew speak about having a will?
Never.
And so, yeah, you're not aware that there was a will, are you?
I'm not.
Okay. In fact, based on conversations with siblings and everybody involved. I mean, it doesn't appear that he ever planned or had ever prepared a will,
Not as much as I know.
right? Because he died unexpectedly.
Right,
So the only heir of his estate, as far as you know, would be his son,
that's correct.
Patrick.
Yes.
Your Honor, I pass this witness.
Ms. Clapper. You're muted, Georgia.
Thank you. Now, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you?
Yes, in small places. Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. We spoke yesterday, did we not?
Yes, we did.
And we went over all of the facts that you've testified to today.
Yes, we
And
did.
and you believe that Ron O'Sullivan, Stephen Scott's father, would make a great person to handle the estate of Patrick.
Absolutely.
And you know of no other heirs whatsoever. And we put into everything that you've testified to with Mr. Davidson, we put into an affidavit that you're going to sign and file in the records of this court.
Correct.
And it's doing correct. Thank you so very much for your time yesterday and for today.
Welcome.
Okay, call your next witness, Counsel.
Very good. I call Michael C. O'Sullivan. Want to confirm, Mr. O'Sullivan, you've been sworn, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, please state your name for the court.
Michael Craig O'Sullivan.
And what was your relationship to the deceased,
I'm an
Stephen?
uncle.
His uncle. Okay. Now you heard me ask your sister a bunch of questions about Stephen and his marital relationship and his family relationship and his divorce. If I were to ask you all of those same questions, would your answers be the same?
Absolutely.
And the only other question I'll ask is, you didn't know anything about him having a will, did you?
No.
And you're not interested in this estate, and you're not being compensated for being here, are you?
That is all correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I pass this witness.
Counselor.
And you've known your nephew, Stephen Scott O'Sullivan, since he was born to the day
Yes,
that he
ma'am.
died. And you know that there's no other person that he married after the divorce to Nell, correct? He was never married again.
No others. That's right.
And he did not have any other child born to, adopted, or taken into his household to raise after the birth of young Patrick.
That's correct.
So Patrick is his one and only heir in this matter.
Absolutely.
And you believe that Ron O'Sullivan would make a good person to be the
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And thank you for your time yesterday and last week, and for providing the information and the affidavits of heirship.
You're welcome. Thanks for working with us. And Roy Fuller, if you can hear me, good morning, buddy.
Thank you.
Apparently he can hear you.
All right.
Take care, Mr. O'Sullivan.
So, Your Honor, this time I would ask that, that the heirs be determined, that the judgments declaring heirship be signed, naming Patrick Thomas O'Sullivan as a sole heir.
Okay, so, yeah,
You know-
looks like the judgment declaring heirship is pretty simple. Ms. Clapper, you agree with that?
I do, Your Honor, and I filed a full report of the attorney ad litem, and I found no other heirs whatsoever on all of the searches that we do, internet and also in local records, that indeed Stephen Scott O'Sullivan's one and only heir is his son, Patrick.
Everybody approve the judgment declaring heirship and order granting independent administration and authorized letters.
Very good. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
May we be excused?
You may be. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Ms. Clapper, is your ad litem pay in this order?
I filed it this morning, and there's an order for you to sign, and I
Okay.
discussed it with Mr. Davidson as well.
We'll get that signed. We'll make sure you get paid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so cause number 147, state of Thomas James Davis. Mr. Benoit, you on? I see Mr. Fuller.
I am, Your Honor.
There
Good
you go.
morning.
Good morning, Brandon. Okay, you may proceed, Council.
Your Honor, I'd like to call Brett Bloomquist. Believe he's
I'm here.
on here.
He's there. Good morning, Brett.
All right.
Yep. Good morning, Judge. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
All right, Mr. Bloomquist, you are familiar with Thomas James Davis, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How did you know him?
He's been a friend of the family for a matter of years now.
Okay. And he typically went by Tommy, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. He passed away on October 21st of 2021, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And at the time of his death, he lived in Mont Bellevue in Chambers County, Texas?
Yes, sir.
Were you familiar with his family history?
Yes, sir.
Was Tommy ever married?
No, sir.
Did Tommy have any children born to him that you know of?
No, sir.
Did any children live with Tommy in the house there in Mont Bellevue?
No, sir.
Did Tommy ever mention having a will at any point during his conversations with you?
No, sir.
Are you aware of him ever having made a will?
No, sir.
So Tommy was not married, did not have any children. Are you familiar with who his parents were?
Yes, sir.
Who was Tommy's father?
James Davis. Goes by
And
Jimmy.
Who was Tommy's mother?
Kim Davis.
Okay. And so other than Jim and Kim, there are no other heirs based on your knowledge of their family history. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're not related to Tommy. You're not receiving anything from his estate. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you're not receiving anything from either my office or Jim or Kim for your testimony here today. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Nothing further past the witness, Your Honor.
Yes,
May I proceed, Your Honor?
you may.
Mr. Youngquist, my name is Roy Fuller. I'm the attorney ad litem that was appointed to represent any unknown heirs. You and I have had an opportunity to visit previously by telephone, have we not?
That's correct. We have.
And it's my understanding that you've known Tommy since he was 5 years of age. Is that correct?
Yes, approximately.
Approximately correct. And that you're, in fact, were a neighbor of Tommy's at the time of his death. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there's probably no one that knows Tommy any better than you and your spouse being his neighbors and knowing his family. Is that also correct?
Correct.
And if he'd taken any children into his family, you would know of those children, would you not, being a neighbor?
Yes, we would have.
And did he live with any woman, a female that might be interpreted as a common law spouse?
No, sir.
And to your knowledge, he had no will, never had a discussion concerning a will. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, next witness, Counselor.
Your Honor, and I think I may have called Brett Mr. Bloomquist. So apologize for that if I did that. I'd like to call Kelly Youngquist to the stand.
I didn't catch it, but apparently smiling. You may proceed, sir.
All right. Please state your name for the court, Ms. Youngquist.
Ellie Jo Youngquist?
And were you familiar with Tommy Davis?
Yes, sir.
And as Mr. Fuller just testified, you guys were neighbors with Tommy. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you knew him for several years prior to his passing?
About 5 years.
Okay. And you heard the questions I asked your husband about Tommy and his family history and about his will and all of that. If my questions were the same to you, would you agree with the answers that your husband gave?
Yes, I agree.
Are you being paid for your testimony here today?
No, sir.
All right, nothing further for this witness.
Yes.
Ms. Youngquist, you knew Tommy such that if he had any children or he were married, you would know of those children, would you not?
Yes, sir.
And so your testimony here this morning that his only heirs would be his father, James Davis, and his mother, Kimberly Davis, correct?
Yes, sir.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, at this time, we'd ask that you sign the judgment declaring heirship. We have an independent administration request as well, but wanted to get that tended to before we move forward with that portion of this hearing.
Okay, and I
Your
see Mr. Fuller, you've signed off on the judgment declaring heirship.
Yes, Your Honor, I have approved the judgment and signed off on it.
And I hereby approve that and approve to pay Mr. Fuller.
Thank you, Judge.
May proceed, sir, with the order granting independent administration.
Your Honor, I'd like to call James Davis at this time.
I don't see Mr. Davis.
Well, can you hear us?
I see Kim. Yes, turn your video on, please.
Start my video. There we are.
There you are. All right, now you may proceed, Mr. Benoit.
All right, Mr. Davis, state your name for the court.
Jim Davis.
You are Tommy's father, is that correct?
That's correct.
You're requesting this court grant or allowing it.
You froze up.
Administration of Tommy's estate, is that correct?
Repeat that, sir. You froze up for a minute.
You're asking the court to grant an independent administration of Tommy's estate, is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
And you're not disqualified from serving as independent administrator of his estate, are you?
No,
You've not been convicted of a crime, a felony, or anything like that, correct?
that's correct.
And Tommy's estate was not of sufficient size to incur estate tax. He didn't die with $6 or $7 million worth of property, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, pass the witness, Your Honor.
No questions to the court, Mr. Fuller?
No, Your Honor, I have no questions on the application for administration.
Your Honor, I call Kim Davis. And Kim, state your name for the,
Kim Davis?
and you're Tommy's mother, correct?
Yes.
And you're also asking to be appointed independent administrator of Tommy's estate?
Yes.
And you're not disqualified from serving as independent administrator of the estate, is that correct?
That's correct.
And again, Tommy didn't die with enough assets to trigger any estate tax, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, nothing further, Your Honor. We'd ask that you grant the independent administration authorized letters of administration to James Davis and Kimberly G. Davis as proposed in the order that we have submitted to the court.
So done. Are you here at the courthouse, Mr. Benoit?
I'm actually in the parking lot, Your Honor.
I figured that. Okay, so we have a few more probates. I don't know if you and Mr. Baker have had a chance to visit, but if you would take a few minutes and if it's possible to reach an agreement in this civil case coming up.
Absolutely. Thank you, Your Honor. Maybe
Thank you.
excused.
You may be.
Thank you.
Take care, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate it. Have a
Take
great
care.
day.
Thank you,
You
Judge.
too. Thank you. All right, cause number 150 is state of Sadie R. Black. Mr. Wiltz, you are muted, sir.
Yes, sir. Here I am.
There you are. You may proceed, Counsel.
This is on Sadie R. Black.
Yes, sir.
All right. Keith, would you state your full name for the court, please?
Keith Wayne Black.
Were you sworn in when everyone else was sworn in at the beginning
Yes,
of the
sir.
docket?
Would you
How
like
were
to
you
take
re-
them both at the same time, Counselor? Is it?
I'd be glad to, Judge. It's still going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, I figured so. Okay, so let's go on 150 and 151.
Very good.
DR Black and Jerry D. Black.
All right.
You may proceed.
So Keith, we're how are you related to Jerry D. Black?
I'm his son.
Right. Did Sadie Black die on September 7th of this year?
Yes, sir.
And did Jerry D. Black die on August 11th of this year?
Yes, sir.
At the time of each of their deaths, were each of them still residents of Chambers County in Baytown here in Chambers County?
Yes, sir.
Right. And I believe Jerry was 75 and Sadie was 74 at the time of their respective deaths.
Yes.
Of course, no 4 years have not elapsed since the time of either of their death. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
No, it hasn't been 4 years since either of them died.
No, it hasn't.
You brought to me what you found as valid wills written by each one. Sadie Black's on June 16th, 2003, and Jerry Black's on June 5th of 2003. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you have a chance to look at those wills and examine the handwriting and signatures and everything?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did those appear to be their original wills?
Yes, sir.
And are those the wills that I believe your sister filed for us in the county clerk's office in Chambers
Yes,
County?
they are. They are.
We asked the court to take judicial notice that the original wills are in the court's possession.
Yes, sir. So done.
Do you know of any manner in which your mother or father revoked or tried to set aside their will after they were made?
No.
Did either of them have any children born or adopted to them after the date of their respective wills?
No.
And of course, there was no divorce after the date of the wills, was there?
Right.
They were both married to each other, and it's the only marriage they ever had. Is that correct?
Yes.
We filed asking the court to probate the wills as minimum of title only because there's no need for administration, and all debts, possible debts charged against the estate have been paid, and there's no other need of any kind for administration of the property. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was any bequest made in either will to the state of Texas or any government agencies of the state or charitable organization?
No.
And to your knowledge, they both had plenty of insurance and never used Medicaid during their lifetime.
No, they never did.
Right. I believe that's all the questions I have for him, Your Honor. I've tried 2 times to get the MERP certificates from up in Irving, Texas, and they're supposed to be faxing or email them to me as we speak, but I've been trying for over a month to get them to do those, but sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Understand. Okay, I'm gonna approve the order probating will as minimum title on both. If you'll get those certificates to us, I'd appreciate that, Counselor.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a good day.
Good day. All right, cause number 152, the state of Frank Ripley Clinton. Mr. Dawson, good morning.
Okay, good morning, Judge. Let me get this video going.
I
Okay,
got you.
okay, good morning, Judge.
Morning.
And on the estate of Frank Ripley Clinton, I'll be the one testifying, and I am under oath. Frank Ripley Clinton died on March 13th, 2021. He, at the time of his death, he was visiting in Baldwin County, Alabama, and he expired over there in Baldwin County, Alabama. However, he had a long-time residence in Chambers County, Texas. It's the date of his death in March 2021. The document dated February 4, 2017 is his last will and testament. It's never been revoked. A necessity exists for the administration of the estate. There was no children born or adopted after the date of the will. He was survived by his wife, Susan Lynn Hoffield Clanton. They were married in 1985. There's no gifts to charitable organizations or any governmental entity, or this. It's a non-taxable estate. At no time did the decedent apply for Medicaid. I'd request that appraisers be waived. The surviving wife, Susan Lynn Hoffield Clanton, is named as such in the will. She's well qualified to serve. And I'd ask that the court take judicial notice of the will and to appoint Susan Lynn Hoffield Clanton as independent executor to serve without bond. That's all I have, Judge.
So done. Thank you, Counselor. Good day.
Thank you, Judge. Have a good day.
All right, cause number 155, the state of James Earl Morgan, Senior. Ms. Clapper.
I don't think that my client was in the room to be sworn.
Okay, raise your right hand, please, ma'am.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're giving today is true and correct, so help you God?
I do.
You can put your hand down, you may proceed,
I
Council.
do.
Is your name Ramona Lynn Morgan?
Yes,
And you're the daughter of James R. Morgan, a senior.
yes,
And James Morgan was a resident of Chambers County, Texas for years. I was thinking 50 years before his death.
close to it.
All right. Now, he died on June 14th, 2021 at the age of 85 in Methodist Hospital in Houston. Is that correct?
Yes,
But otherwise, he owned property here in Chambers County, and it was for more than 50 years. He was married twice during his lifetime, correct?
mm-hmm.
You were born during the first marriage to Francis Eugene Bailey, and that marriage terminated in divorce in Jasper County, Texas. 3 children were born, yes?
Yes,
James O. Morgan Jr., yourself, and Carla Renee Morgan.
right.
Now, after that divorce, he then married Linda Farrell Chapman on November 16th of 64, and she died and that on June 14th of 2021.
Yes,
Actually, she died later, September the 19th of 2021. So we're doing two
Yes.
probates today.
yes,
But 2 children were born during the marriage between James Morgan and Linda Morgan, and that's Lisa and David Allen.
yes,
All right. So we're here today to probate the will of, and you are familiar with your father's signature.
yes,
I'm going to go to that last page where it shows that you're familiar with James R. Morgan,
yes,
and is that indeed his signature? He actually
Yes.
put senior there, didn't he?
Yes,
Because
he
Junior had been born. And that was signed in the presence of Danita Harrington and Kathy Land and notarized by Rita Salmon, all at Joe Salmon's office here in Anahuac on November 6th of 1991. Now, you have been named as co-executor with your brother. What's his name?
James Earl Morgan Jr.
Now, James Earl has signed a waiver saying that it would be easier for you to handle the probate as executor alone. And he's waived his right to be co-executor with you
Yes.
as set out in the will. And you're willing to do that.
Yeah.
And all of the children have signed waivers of service of citation and appearance, and they've been filed before the court.
Okay.
You got them here in record time last.
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. So you are named to be executor, serve without bond, to follow the edicts of the will, and you are not prohibited by law for any reason to serve as executor.
No.
You're well qualified to do that. Now, of course, they died in 21. We're here in 21. 4 years have not passed since their death. You're asking the court to admit the will to probate so you can handle the outstanding house situation. There's no charitable, you read it. There's no charitable organization named in this will, no government agency named in the will, and Medicaid or any other governmental agency, to your knowledge, does not have a claim against this estate. And there's no reason for any type of appraisers, none have been asked for, and you're asking for the court to admit the will to probate and issue you letters testamentary, correct?
Yes.
Judge,
All right, everybody admits the will to probate and authorize letters, and you may proceed on cause 156, state of Linda Farrell Morgan.
okay. Now I'm going to, you are Ramona Lynn, you are named in the will to act as co-executor with your brother. He has also signed a waiver of that right to serve as executor and asking you to do it by yourself.
Yes.
You're willing to do that?
Yes.
You're asking the judge to approve that waiver and to enter that you are indeed allowed to go independent without bond. You have read the will. It's identical to James's. She didn't live 6 months after him, so technically the second paragraph falls in with James, and it's identical to your mom's. She believed that all 5 children were as much hers as they were James. And on this proof of death, you read to it. If I asked you every question, the marriage did terminate at her death. There were only 2 children born during her marriage, but she considered you 3 her children as well. And that is as what is set out in the will. You Also looking at it, you see that that is indeed her signature. Let me go there. Yep. Signed in front of Danita and Kathy Land and sworn to in front of Rita Sandon on November 6th of 91. So they kind of did everything together, didn't they?
Everything.
All right. He did not revoke, she didn't revoke this will, and he didn't revoke his either during their lifetimes. There's no other child born to them, to your knowledge, or adopted by them, or brought into the household to be raised by either Linda or James, correct? Yes, nobody else.
Right.
All right, now you are willing to accept them. There's no charity, there's no governmental agency named in her will, and there's no agency that has a claim against
No.
her estate either. You're willing to take the oath as independent executor and to perform the duties as your parents have asked you to do. You're asking the court to so find and issue letters testamentary.
Yes.
That's all, Judge. Sorry, I was fast.
Yeah, that's quite all right. So I hereby admit the will of probate and authorize letters. Ladies, have a good day.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
You too. I don't know how to get out of here. Leave.